What is up, you guys? Teller checking in for the recap of UFC 291, the highly anticipated card, delivered in a major way. If you ask me, a lot of action top to bottom. It was a very enjoyable event, except that at some specific times, it was not another profitable event for me. My event actually came down to a very controversial, frustrating split decision. We'll get to that fight towards the top of this recap. I had three official plays after one fell off the card. You guys know Stephen Thompson and Michel Pereira. That fight did fall off the card. And I think that Stephen Thompson somewhat dropped the ball there, right? Thompson declined to go through with the fight after Pereira missed weight by 3 pounds. And I understand that it is Michel Pereira's fault there for missing weight. But, Stephen Thompson was going to take a chunk of his purse. Stephen Thompson's up there in age. He has another weight cut under his belt. That's not a good thing, especially being up there in age. He only has so much time left in the game. I felt that he should have took the fight. And, it seemed that the UFC was a little frustrated that he didn't take the fight as well, because I believe they did not give him his purse. That is a clear sign that they were not happy with his decision. So I'm sure you guys will have some mixed views out there. You guys can let me know what you thought about that. Again, I want to be clear. It's Michel's fault in the first place for missing weight, and he is at fault the most. But Thompson maybe should have just manned up and took that fight, and I would have liked to have cashed that underdog play on Michel Pereira there, but that fight gets scrapped. Let's talk about the first fight here. Miranda Maverick pulls off the armbar in the third round. She looked very good throughout this fight. That's the Miranda Maverick that we want to see moving forward. We talked about the fact that she's still young, has plenty of time to right the ship, but she has had some disappointing performances here and there. But this was a solid performance on a big stage, kicking the card off against a very tough fighter in Priscilla Cachoeira. So after that, we saw Uros Medic get that third round finish over Matthew Semmelsberger. I thought that Matthew Semmelsberger looked very good early on. He was getting a little sloppy, but he dropped Medic twice throughout this fight. Hurt Medic really bad, but Medic looked very big in this weight class. He looked very solid, and we saw that he was durable, and he took his beating early on and was just waiting to land that big shot there, and eventually he did. He hit him with that spinning back fist. Really, I guess you can call it a spinning forearm. Hit him with almost a forearm right to Semmelsberger's dome, and hurt him, and then he finished him. So props to Medic. It's good to see Medic starting to really live up to some of that potential that we know that he had early on. Some ups and downs for him as well, but or at least he had a down at one point in time, and he's cleaning things up, I should say. Jake Matthews completely outclasses Darius Flowers. I loved how Jake Matthews was very cerebral here, very patient. He waited for the right opportunities. Eventually, he dominated down on the mat, and we talked about that being a very likely potential for how that fight was going to take place. If you guys remember, I know that Flowers has the Gracie tattoo right across his chest, but he has been vulnerable to submissions before, and Matthews is a very underrated submission fighter in the game, and he just had a world more of experience going into this fight, and Matthews is still a stud. So different levels there. Matthews was also much larger, so props to Flowers for taking that fight on short notice, and the UFC will give him another opportunity, and we'll see what he's made of down the line. Roman Kopylov with the head kick knockout. Obviously not the only head kick knockout that we saw on this card. When that happened, I saw a lot of buzz of people reflecting back to the Salt Lake City event that took place a year ago when Leon Edwards knocked out Kamaru Usman. Listen, Roman Kopylov did his best to emulate that, but somebody else emulated it probably even better later on in the card. So you guys know what I'm talking about there. But Roman Kopylov, he's still young, and he is a talented fighter, man. He's a fighter that has really, really grown throughout the years. I told you guys, I wasn't that high on him early on, but we had to take into consideration that he was very young, and he's one of those fighters that made the adjustments and really just has he has some X factors behind him. He's a fighter that just really has that it factor, if you ask me, as far as just having that grit and just that mental toughness. And I think that big things will continue to come from him. He's a fighter that's just never really out of a fight. He's always looking for that comeback, and he's talented too. CJ Vergara takes out Vinicius Salvador. Vinicius Salvador now 0-2 in the UFC since getting signed, and good for CJ Vergara getting a win there. Salvador needs to figure something out. I don't know if the UFC will give him another opportunity. Maybe they do, but He looked good very early on using the jab and whatnot, but CJ Vergara rose to the occasion there. Okay, guys, we're going to be talking about some official action here. We did hit our first play. We had a two-team parlay kicked off by Gabriel Bonfim. He pulled the guillotine choke off on Trevin Giles. A lot of people were kind of questioning my pick here. Some of my customers were questioning me targeting Bonfim here based on the fact that the line was decently high. But, I parlayed him. We'll get to the other piece here in a second, but together I caught them at minus 150, and I did lock Bonfim in at a line of minus 315, and I had no problem with it. I told you guys Gabriel is the more promising Bonfim brother. He really, really is a promising fighter, and he has the potential to hold down Brazilian MMA in the UFC moving forward in the near future. I'm telling you, he's a fighter that could be pushing his way towards some big-time fights. He's super talented. He's very young. And, some people were questioning the fact that he hadn't really gone late in some of his fights. And Giles is a proven UFC fighter. He's been around the block for some time. But when you break down the tape and you really turn over every stone, you understand that Gabriel's a fighter that is just very quick twitched on the feet and just flows very well. And that's exactly how I saw this fight going beforehand, and it's how it played out. Bonfim he's fluid, man. It's like Bruce Lee, with that whole, flow like water type thing. I mean, he goes anywhere that the fight goes, he lets it just unravel, and anywhere it goes, he's just a step ahead of his opponents. Obviously, we'll see how he looks when the level of competition goes up. But make no mistake, Trevin Giles is a solid fighter. He went out there and just subbed him within seconds. I'm telling you, man, the Bonfim brothers are the real deal. I know that Ishmael just took a loss. He'll bounce back. But Gabriel, he's the fighter that you need to watch in the welterweight division. That was easy money there. Kevin Holland pulls off the Darce on Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa, he hadn't fought in a while. I was thinking maybe he was going to come back looking a little bit sharper. You would have think he's been working on some things, but he just needs to stay in the booth. And if that, maybe the UFC needs to give him the boot. I don't even know if he deserves to be in the booth these days. If you ask me, there's other ex-fighters that could probably do a better job up there as well. You guys know I was thinking maybe Chiesa could have pulled off some grappling here and controlled Holland on the mat. Holland, listen, you guys know we have some fun with it, man. But, at the end of the day, we got to keep it real here. Holland has definitely been rounding his game out in a major way. And I'm excited to see how he looks against some of the top guys in the division, because Holland's looking really good. His sub game's looking good. He's been working with Travis Lutter for years. The striking's nasty. And Michael Chiesa had no chance to get that fight down to the mat. So we were off on that one. Although you guys know, I gave you that pick with the grain of salt. Hopefully you guys aren't looking at that under the magnifying glass there. You guys know I wanted to have some fun there. I'm not a Holland fan, but I kind of made that clear. It was a little bit of a risky play there, but then we go to the Bobby Green fight. This was indeed my other leg in that two-team parlay that I put together and caught at minus 150. I really like this spot here on Bobby Green, strictly based on the fact that I've been saying, and I very firmly believe, Tony Ferguson's done. He's been done. He's been washed. The fight that he had against Justin Gaethje took way too much out of him. I mean, when you see him getting punted by Michael Chandler, you see him going out there getting subbed by Nate Diaz. This is a guy that shouldn't be fighting in the UFC. And I have also said Bobby Green is a fighter that has looked better with age. He's looked very sharp. His striking has been very, very crisp, very accurate. This was just a fight that I felt very confident in. And I know some of you big Tony fans were hoping he could have showed up and maybe took this fight. I know some of you guys were thinking, listen, if this was a fight that was matched up some years ago, Tony Ferguson would be a huge favorite. So how do you like the value on Green? I loved it. I loved it. I just knew that Bobby Green wasn't losing this fight. That's how I felt about it. So I'm taking that money right there. So the two-team parlay there had 4 units on that minus 150 combined line there. It cashes. Now, this was a fight that I want to apologize for. And, as I saw Derek Lewis at the weigh-ins, I wanted to swap my pick on IG, and I stuck with it because I know some of you guys only follow me here on YouTube and you're not following me on IG, MMA Fortune Teller _. I didn't want to kind of like mess some of you guys up there. And also, I still wasn't sure, but Derek Lewis looked phenomenal on the scales. And once I saw that, I had a feeling that he was going to come out here and look good. He looked really, really good. He looked in phenomenal shape. And, I was wrong. So I want to just straight up be upfront about that. I was thinking that Derek Lewis was going to come into this fight as unmotivated as ever. If you're telling me that Derek Lewis didn't get into that type of shape and take the game as serious when he had major matchups against legends in the game and huge opportunities to work his way to fighting for the belt again and this and that, Why didn't he do that back then? And then why all of a sudden in a matchup against Marcos Rogerio de Lima does he look to be in the best shape that he's ever been? It's a little bit questionable. I mean, you could say that the losses motivated him, but why not just do what you did going into this fight when you had these big matchups just a little bit ago? So it's a little bit weird to me, a little bit frustrating. I wasn't expecting it, but nevertheless, it was fun to watch the Black Beast go out there and just bombard Marcos Rogerio de Lima. He literally just charged him from the get-go, hit him with that flying knee, just followed him down to the mat, smashed him up. I would have liked to see that fight go on a little bit longer, but Marcos was shelling up, not really doing anything. But I would have liked to have seen maybe if Marcos could have kind of wiggled around a little bit and tried to pull guard or something and see how Derek Lewis would have looked a little bit later on in this fight. But probably would have looked good, looked to be in great shape. So no action on this fight. I just wanted to see a little bit more of a fight. But being honest, even though I picked Marcos Rogerio de Lima, I am a fan of Derek Lewis, and it was fun. You know, I'm in the bar, everybody's going crazy. He pulls his shorts off, hits him with the DX suck it. How do you not love that? All right, I mean, come on. Big shout out to Derek Lewis, and I'm excited to see who he fights next. And then we had 2 more official plays, so you guys know this next fight here, it's where it really ruined my night as far as it being a profitable night. You guys know I had Jan Błachowicz here. I had a 4-unit play on him, grabbed him at pick'em odds. I stand behind this play 100%. I stand behind both my next 2 plays here. Sometimes things just don't work out, but I do believe that Jan Błachowicz won this fight. I do not believe in any type of way it was a robbery. It was an extremely close fight. I have no problem with any of you guys saying Pereira won this fight. I understand Pereira was the aggressor, especially late in this fight, but let me break it down to you how I saw this fight. Jan Błachowicz wins the first round. There's no question about it. He gets that takedown. He wins the first round. Pereira bounces back very, very well in the second round. And even towards the very end of the first round, you could see that Błachowicz was very tired. And then you saw Pereira landing a lot of heavy leg kicks. You saw Błachowicz, his leg was messed up. And Pereira was bringing the heat, throwing some heavy shots. Although I will argue to you, if you really run the tape back and you see a lot of those big shots that he threw, a lot of them missed. All those flurries he was throwing on Błachowicz, not a lot of those shots were really landing. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But I would definitely give Pereira the second round, even though I think that round was decently close. But that was Pereira's round. No question. I won't argue there. Now you go to the third round. The reason why Jan Błachowicz lost this fight, in my opinion, is for the sheer fact of his body language. He looked so gassed out. He was, on the back foot, and Pereira was aggressing. Meanwhile, rewatch that third round. Błachowicz is the fighter that was landing the more impactful shots. He was countering Pereira, and then when he had his little spurts, he was the fighter that was landing heavy hooks. He was the one landing on Pereira, and Pereira was aggressing towards him, missing with a bunch of shots, but his body language looked so much better because he was the one chasing Błachowicz around. But I really would argue that Błachowicz was the fighter landing the cleaner strikes in that third round, even though there was a little bit of a slight lean towards Pereira in that third round, and then Błachowicz gets a takedown with a decent amount of time left and really rode him out to end that round. I know he didn't do a lot of damage. He should have tried to posture up. He was exhausted. I still feel you have to give Błachowicz that third round, or you should at the very least. It wasn't a robbery. I don't have a problem with it. If you thought Pereira took that third round, it was so close. As soon as that bell rung, I knew that it was going to be, I said to everybody at the bar, split decision for Pereira, because I haven't been getting the good side of any of these splits, and I just felt it in my gut. You knew it was a split, and you knew it was going to Pereira. I understand the criteria is more damage and more, of being on the attack on the feet. They're just not really giving a lot of credit to grappling these days. Kind of disappoints me because I think that grappling still is a major part of fighting. If you get on top of somebody and you're on top of them, I understand you should be doing damage too, but it takes a lot to get a takedown. If you get on top of somebody and you're throwing a little bit of some pepper shots, I think you should get some credit for that as well. This fight could have went either way. I thought that we should have got the nod there. We didn't. 4-unit play at pick'em odds. That was the breaker of this being a profitable night for me there. So was what it was. And then you guys know I had a 4-unit play on DP Dustin Poirier. Grabbed him at -145. Stand behind this play all day. Dustin Poirier has made so much money for me throughout the years. I mean, he's just a fighter that checks off every box. The line wasn't that bad. I mean, yeah, could have been better. I mean, I grabbed them at -145. Maybe you guys can argue that the value was on Gaethje. The first fight was so long ago, and Gaethje's really cleaned up his technique and his striking. But this was a fight that I'll tell you right now, if Gaethje doesn't land that flash bang knockout, this is Dustin Poirier's fight all day. Dustin Poirier was getting the better of him in the first round. Dustin Poirier was going to be slightly ahead of him every round as long as this fight went out. And as far as if we were to see a finish late in this fight with somebody maybe just getting a little bit broken down a little bit more so, Poirier would have been the fighter kind of breaking him mentally and kind of putting the volume on him. And I say all that not to take any credit away, because this is the fight game. There's all different elements to it. What a beautiful setup on that head kick there for Gaethje. Everybody's worried about the leg kicks. He set that up beautifully. Shout out to him and his coach, Trevor Whitman. And big props for Gaethje. And, who do you guys want to see him face next? You take a look at the lightweight division right now. Gaethje's rocking the BMF title. By the way, go check me out on IG. I put my Mount Rushmore for my BMFs of all time. Tell me what you guys thought about that. I would love to know your guys' thoughts. In fact, hit the comment section below. Tell me your Mount Rushmore of your BMFs. Could be from any era at any time. The thing I mixed into equation there was your fighting style, whether they bring the fight and all that, and also being a bad, a BMF outside the cage, inside and outside the cage, right? I got guys like Tank Abbott on my Mount Rushmore there. Check out my other three. I'll give you another sneak peek. I got Conor McGregor on that too. Conor McGregor does not mess around. He always brings the fight, willing to fight anybody. And for all you guys that hate him and talk about him like this and that, see him in person and get slick with him and see what kind of BMF McGregor is, because he'll be quick to pop you in your mouth. So McGregor's a little bit of a G, if you ask me, quite a G. But check my other two picks there. And real quick, we'll slide over to the lightweight division. And, of course, we got Islam Makhachev taking on Charles Oliveira. That's at the top of the division right now. DP can take a seat. Beneil Dariush just took a loss, so obviously I don't think he would be next for Gaethje. A fight that I would love to see is Arman Tsarukyan and Justin Gaethje. I want to see that fight. I think that fight would have major implications for the division. And then, of course, you got guys like Grant Dawson breathing down a lot of people's neck. And then McGregor and Chandler are still, out there as well. I don't know if that fight's going to go forward, but that's going to be the recap for UFC 291. Again, an amazing card. Let me know, guys. Comment below. Was it a profitable one for you guys? What were your thoughts on the entire card? What were your thoughts on the decisions and this and that? And I would love to hear any feedback you guys have. All right. We're gonna have the UFC Nashville card here on the channel very, very soon as well. We got Rob Font stepping in on short notice. Rob Font taking Corey Sandhagen. That's a hell of a fight in the bantamweight division. All right, guys. We'll sign out, and we will be talking very soon. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.